Okay. So I can ask them to talk about something that I hope so listen to those questions. So if I could leave, it's 50 minutes. I can start. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the private meeting for the Erickson Senior Development. I'm Nathan Lawrence. I'm a senior planner with the City of Westminster. We are recording this and streaming it. So we'll be uploading a copy to our website within like a week or so after it's compiled. Just briefly where we are in the process. The applicant has submitted an amendment to our comprehensive plan, a rezoning to 10-unit development, as well as a preliminary development plan. The preliminary development plan is really just a high-level document that outlines land use and some bulk area regulations, doesn't get into the level of site planning. This really isn't a meeting for the applicant team to talk to you about their project and answer questions. I'll be available for any questions that apply to our process. So without further ado, hand it over to the applicant team. If you could introduce yourselves.
Great, thank you very much, Nathan. Folks, I'm going to use this mic because we're doing a live webinar, as was said. So I'm going to use it so people can hear us. We'll go through our team, and I'll be really sensitive. If I see a few additional people try to walk in, we may try to catch them up really quickly. Okay, so just seeing the group. I'm Marcus Pochner. I'm part of the team here. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Thank you very much for being here. We look forward to a very interactive process. At the end, will be plenty of time for question and answers, and we'll go through that and happy to address those that do that. So we're here tonight to talk about the Erickson Senior Living Facility just to the east of the site, just outside these windows here, the proposal for this site. Next slide, please. Sorry, no worries. So a little bit just the agenda that we're going to cover. We're going to introduce first our team, so you know who is here tonight to answer any questions and the scope of our team that is working on this. We'll talk a little bit about the process. We actually call it the applications, but it talks about the process we are going through to work with the city, to work with our neighbors. We'll talk about the site specifically, right? Go through that, the context of that area and our general proposal. So site 3 or the agenda item 3 really starts to show what our vision is for that site and how to do that. And then we'll come back about what's ahead, the next steps, and how to engage with all of you. Next slide, please. This is our team. We're all here representing Erickson Senior Living. We will hear from them. Mary Ann will introduce herself in just a moment. She will lead the Erickson team. Kaylee is here on behalf of Norris Design. The three of us will give the primary part of the presentation. And then we have a number of teams here. Scoper Smith is our engineer. Smith's group is here. Pochner Company and CRL are doing community outreach. Aquason and Autumn Johnson is our legal counsel. So our whole team is here. We're available to answer any questions that you have. Next slide, please. I'm going to have Mary Ann introduce herself, tell a little bit about her role, and then really introduce Erickson to all of you.
Thank you. Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay? Sorry, I'll take a second.
A little loud.
Can you hear me okay? No, it's not working. Okay, I'll borrow Nathan. I mean, Marcus. Just a moment. It's a small group, so except I want to be mindful of the folks that are online. So I'll try to grab that microphone. Can you hear me now? No. All right. Thank you. All right, let's give it another shot. Can you hear it? Yeah. I think it's probably user area. Hello? Okay. Great. Thank you for bearing with me during the technical difficulties. And also thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. I'm Mary Ann Navarro, Director of Entitlement with Erickson Senior Living. I'm also joined by Steve Montgomery with Erickson Senior Living. He is the Vice President of Development with the real estate development teams at Erickson. I just want to tell you a little bit about Erickson Senior Living. We are a leader in senior living. senior living and healthcare. Our first community opened 41 years ago in Baltimore, Maryland. And we are a growing company. So over that time, we have expanded to have over 28,000 residents at 24 communities in 11 states. Our closest community to here in Westminster is our Windcrest community, which is down in Douglas County. Our newest community is Woodley Chase in Fairfax, Virginia. And over that time, we've also grown to over 15,000 employees. And our mission is to help people live better lives. And that really applies to both our employees and our residents. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background about a continuing care retirement community. What is a continuing care retirement community? We are a licensed operator of age-restricted housing that offers a continuum of care here in Colorado for seniors that are 62 years of age or older. I think the important thing here to know is that we are licensed through the state of Colorado as a life care institution, and that we again are age restricted to seniors that are 72 or older. I think we'll talk about it, or 62 and older. I think we'll talk about it a little bit more, but most of our seniors are older than that. They're really around age 80, give or take a few years when they come to live with us. And again, we have that continuum of care, and that includes independent living, assisted living, memory care, and a skilled nursing should our residents need to advance through the continuum of care options available. Next slide, please. The Erickson experience. Erickson is really, it's sort of Erickson community is sort of a combination between offers housing, healthcare, and hospitality, we like to say. I think a lot of people come to Erickson because of this integrated approach that we take to health and well-being and creating that sense of community and belonging for our residents. And we really provide this lifestyle, and we are able to deliver this lifestyle to many seniors because of our scale and the scale of our community. Next slide, please. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the average age of our resident is 80 years old. It offers the opportunity for them to age in place without losing their quality of life. We also offer integrated healthcare, transportation. We do this through an entrance deposit model as part of the continuing care retirement community model. We also have a monthly service fee that allows our residents to access a lot of the amenities that are on campus, the gyms, the gardens, dog park, amphitheater, but also things like dining, the healthcare, the community amenities that are inside the building, the fitness center, that sort of thing. It's all part of the continuing care lifestyle and package that's available. Next slide.
Great, folks. I'll jump in here. I'm staying out of the way here because the camera is coming across. Can everybody hear me okay? Are we picking up? You all keep the microphone there. So talk a little bit about community outreach and the way we'd like to engage with all of you. I know most of you, by the way, just to show of hands, are you Waverly Acres neighbors? Maybe just to kind of know the room. Okay. I know some of the other folks. Any other neighborhoods you want to name? Highland Greens or Highland Meadows or Highland Green? Perfect. Okay. So what we always try to do is really focus on the most impacted communities. Hear from you, hear the feedback. How do we implement, how do we learn from all of you about those conditions, those buffers, those transitions? So we really focus on adjacent neighborhoods. We talk about larger community stakeholders, who those are, nearby neighborhoods, the businesses, the promenade over here, all of the opportunities. The butterfly pavilion, that's certainly a community stakeholder. And then of course, those broader community impacts. All of you know at Sheridan is Jeffco. This is Jefferson County on the west side, Adams County. So working with that broader context. This is a regional facility for senior housing. We think it has that kind of impact, but we want it to be a great neighbor first. So we'll continue to meet with all of you. Next slide. This is focused a little bit on what are our applications. If we go to the next slide here, this is the process that we are going through. So I think just to go through kind of the process we are working through and how that works. The applications in review, they're getting set there. So this is the process that we are going through. First, the comprehensive plan amendments. No problem. We're gonna see if that works.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what's going on. This is
Somebody that's gonna run the equipment.
well, we're doing great. So comprehensive plan amendment and the preliminary plan development and the rezoning. Those are three things. And you can look at this slide here and I can describe it even if the slide is going in and out. I want to be sure and note, we are asking for a change to the comprehensive plan. There was a new comprehensive plan that was adopted, the 2040 plan, just sometime a few years ago, I guess a year ago. And we went through the process. This applicant did at the end of that and said, we went to city council and said, should we ask for a change to the comprehensive plan now? They said, no, go through the formal process that we are going through now, come back through and ask the city council to change that comprehensive plan. So that's why we are doing it. So we are doing three separate applications, comprehensive plan, preliminary development plan, right? And this shows the things that are involved in it. Utility studies, drainage studies, transportation studies, all of the associated PDP. And then we zone the site as well. We do a zoning on that as well, okay? So those are the three steps. We'll go forward here. Maybe this slide is the problem. We'll go to the next one and see if we can pick it up. Next slide here. Let's see if that one holds. So this is the current comprehensive plan, the 2040 plan. As you see here, I want to be very clear. This is the existing use that's on the site. So as neighbors, many of you here to the east of the site in Waverly Acres or Highland Meadows here, thinking about this is what could be built today. Professional offices, research and development, flex office. It's more of a flex characteristic, but it has same building form, 1 to 4 stories generally could have that. Those are the uses that are allowed today. So we're asking for a change in that comprehensive plan designation. But I want to be sure again and show this. So right here, it shows the outline. It shows that purple. That's the employment flex. We're going to ask for that change. What I do want to be sure and underscore is the existing vision of what was planned on this site was the same kind of context. We'll go to the next slide and it shows a little bit about what that is. You can read there about what employment flex is, but these are the type of buildings that would be here, right, under that plan. Office, employment, light industrial, kind of a master plan site that looks like this. This isn't laid out on this site, but it's an example of an employment flex use that could develop. Next slide. This shows us again architectural imagery of what employment flex could look like, right? I think we all can kind of imagine what that used to be on the site. So again, that's the use that is planned on this facility today on the land. And we are going forward asking for a change in the comprehensive plan and then providing the site plan. Next slide, please. The site in our proposal, most of this will be handled by Kaylee. She'll walk through a little bit of the plan. She'll introduce her firm as well. If we go to the next slide here, I'll do a couple of site contacts. So again, you all know this intersection, you know this neighborhood really, really well, but you see our site there outlined. Here we are today in the Butterfly Pavilion, Waverly Acres to the east of this site, and really thinking about across the street, the ball fields, right? The rec center, we all know, the line that is Jeffco and Adams, and then of course the promenade and all the businesses really up here, the engagement of that. There's actually pretty substantial transportation transit opportunities as well. We'll talk about some of the opportunities, how we want to take advantage of that and frankly add to that fabric. And then you see the parks that are around us, of course, more the north of us, and then the great neighborhood Waverly Acres Park that is just east of our site as well. Next. Kaylee, you may take over here. I'll probably transition. Just why Westminster? Why do we want to be here? I'll talk about Kaylee and I work on a number of projects in Westminster. We're natives. We love this community. What we are trying to do with this site is to keep Westminster residents here. We want to age and allow people to have homes in Westminster. This is a true CCRC for people 62 and older in the North Metro area. We don't have it. We talked about the other example of this down in Douglas County in Highlands Ranch. That's a long ways away, but this is a central location in Westminster. And probably most importantly is this last bullet here that talks about an aging population. We are aging in place today. We're not moving out of our homes, but with this type of facility, it actually allows that existing housing stock to turn over and have more reasonable and attainable housing as part of the overall. Next slide. Haley's going to walk us through the images, the bubble plan, and a little bit more about the site plan.
Great, thanks, Marcus.
Sure.
All right, here on the screen is what we like to refer to as a bubble plan. So our nearly 74 acre site here, we're gonna propose 10.5 acres roughly of open space. And one is that northwest corner here along Westminster Boulevard, which allows for 63 acres or so for the continuing care and skilled nursing opportunities. And we've been studying very closely the views of this site, as there's great views out to Long's Peak. So preserving that opportunity, limiting the amount of buildings that would be allowed to disturb that area. We'll show some imagery on what that might look like here later. So this is kind of shows how the site integrates with the overall fabric. We've got the water treatment plant that's proposed down to our south. And then we have the Highland Hills separate gardens neighborhood, sorry, that is approved here just to our east. Next slide. This here on the screen is a very, very preliminary site plan. This is not part of our proposal at this time, but this gives you an idea of what could happen and what our building layout might look like in the future. But first, we've got to go through that initial process where we write the rules and regulations, as Nathan mentioned, through the PDP process. So we're working with staff and our team here to get through the PDP rezoning and comp plan amendment. So we're proposing 2 accesses. The first one is up here along 104, and then we'll have one off of Westminster Boulevard to allow people to kind of meander through the site. We're keeping parking internal to our site. Generally, there'll be parking lots as well as underground parking within these buildings. And then making sure that we're providing setbacks, especially along that eastern edge to our neighbors of Waverly Acres, as well as down south to the water treatment plant. And then working throughout this process of the Big Dry Creek. It's very important that we work to kind of help restore that, provide amenities along that creek. Next slide. Here is our pedestrian connectivity that we're proposing. There is a lot of trails in Westminster. It is quite fabulous. So we are looking to expand that trail network. So this existing Big Dry Creek Trail is there today. That's that 10-foot trail. Then you've got that underpass along 104th with a trail there that gets you over to the ball fields. So we want to be integrated into this neighborhood as well. So we're going to provide crosswalks along 104th and trail connections will come off of that. And then we're looking to provide a proposed soft surface trail internal to the site along that Big Dry Creek area as well. And then on the south side, we're working on what could potentially be a trail connection on the water treatment side. So those existing neighbors of Waverly Acres have opportunities to connect all the way north to Big Dry Creek, as well as south and come up Westminster Boulevard as well. Next slide. Here is a very preliminary view of what this could look like. We're on our eastern edge. So if you're in the Waverly Acres neighborhood, this is that existing soft surface trail you see today. This is our proposed trail that we will be providing here. And you can see those expansive views up to Longs Peak, as well as the west end there on the right and the ball fields even further right. Next slide. And then this is off of 104th. This is our main access into the site. So we'll be proposing those several trail connections shown along Big Dry Creek here on the right-hand side of the screen. An expansive setback here. And then the proposed community of what that architecture may look like. And then this is kind of the guardhouse area. So you'll come into this community, you'll stop here and be able to enter in through there. Next slide. Through our research, as we talked, some of you might have come to the last neighborhood meeting and we heard some feedback about what is it that we are proposing and what would that look like if we cut a cross section through here. So you've got Waverly Acres again on the right. This is that existing park shelter that's there today. We've got over 20 foot of grade change between Waverly Acres and our proposed site property line. So you can kind of see what that would look like. And then we'll be working through expansive landscape buffering and making sure we're providing native and xeric landscaping throughout.
Thank you. This is just to give you an example of the quality of our architecture and community spaces, both in the interior and exterior. I believe all of these images come from our Ringcrest community down in Highlands Ranch and the recently completed Colorado Clubhouse building. And our residents really like to use the outdoor space and access the health and well-being facilities. Next slide, please. And this is just more about the lifestyle and really the sense of belonging and community that the residents develop at our communities. Again, you can see them enjoying the dining and the outdoor spaces. And again, it's really part of our mission to help people live better lives. Real quick, Miriam, I'm going to just jump in here so that the community understands like what types of amenities we're going to be proposing in this neighborhood. So we're looking at an indoor pool, a spa, fitness center, medical center, pharmacy, a life enrichment center. There'll be, as Marianne mentioned, several restaurants and opportunities for dining throughout the entire community. These are kind of sprinkled through. And then they really focus on that outdoor living as it enriches residents' lives. So making sure there's outdoor dining, fitness, walking past resident gardens, pickleball, dog park, bocce, putting green, fire pits, and amphitheaters. So That sounds like a comprehensive list. And again, all of our design is based on that 40 years of experience that we have. And really, we really design our buildings and our campuses how we know that people will use them. So that residents will come and access the dining spaces and the outdoor spaces. We put a lot of thought into that design when you see how things are laid out. Next slide, please. Again, I mentioned earlier, access to the on-site health services is really a very important consideration for many of our residents at this stage of their lives. Again, when people come, they're usually coming in the independent living, but they have access to that continuum of care for themselves or their partner. They may need assisted living, memory care, or skilled nursing. We also have an on-site medical center with on-site physicians that are exclusively Erickson physicians. The community of this size could potentially have 3 or 4 dedicated physicians that are on-site or on call 24 hours a day just for Erickson residents. And they are part of the Erickson Health Medical Group, which is one of the largest geriatric medical practices in the United States. And then just as part of being a resident, all of our residents have access to our emergency protocol system, emergency management response. All of the units are equipped with pull cords. If they should need assistance, or if they fall, residents can wear a pendant if they choose. They have access to that. Our staff, it is all EMR response trained. And there's just a stat here from our internal data that Erickson Emergency Medical Response, we are able to satisfy 87% of the calls that come into our internal dispatch system for medical emergencies. So we're able to handle those on site instead of for them to have to go outside to the 911 system. We're able, through our trained staff, we're able to handle the majority of those cases on site. We also have the on site pharmacy residents, if they choose, they can become part of the Erickson Advantage Medicare Advantage Health Plan. It's a 5-star rated program through the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. That's one of like probably the top 1% of plans in the country that seniors would have access to. Next slide, please.
Great, so I can add a couple here, I'll come back into view. So just a few things, we're gonna wrap up here. I think we have 4 or 5 more slides. I just want to be sure the reason we talk a little bit about the economic impact is we understand you are neighbors and we want to be first great neighbors. We always have to think of the existing comp plan designation, and that plan was economic impact, the jobs, the things that were there. So we believe this is absolutely an economic contributor, very significant. This gives a lot of that. So of course, the property tax base, we don't actually have that impact that we think of a lot. I recognize some of you, of course, when we worked on the Semper Gardens proposal, right? And that was about what's the impact on schools, right? This facility will have no impact on schools, but yet creates tremendous revenue for the district. So it doesn't have that. The other thing I would say here in Butterfly Pavilion, this is a resident-driven scholarships and volunteering opportunities. We create so many volunteers that really become part of the community, really do that. And you can see the property assessment value, very enrichment into the surrounding neighborhoods. This shows an estimated property value. Next slide. So when you think about a little bit that workforce development part of this, so you can all picture it as a kind of a full community. We look at the payroll that this will have, almost a $20 million payroll, approximately 700 jobs to be created. The income, the disposable income generation, we think of that so much more in the promenade, the existing businesses, the surrounding area, looking at that, and of course, the career opportunities. I would point out, all of us know our neighbors, Front Range Community College. We are working with them on workforce development, partnerships, and nurse training opportunities. We're working very closely with them to really develop other programs with their clinical nursing training programs. Next slide. Last one, we'll probably end here, I believe, on local housing demand. I touched this a little bit, but this is actually information from the state demographer. And if you haven't watched that, I would encourage you to watch her presentation about this. But she talks about the 2040 plan, and 65 plus population expected to be 15% of the total Adams County population. Jeffco saw over 60% increase in that 65, that same population from 2010 to 2021. It is the fastest growing population. It's supposed to be 1 in 4 residents in Westminster by 2040. Everyone has identified that from a diversity of product, diversity of housing typology, the type we need more than anything is senior housing. And that's why we're trying to address this and provide this in this area. Next slide. Our commitment, this is what we'd like to offer. We're happy to meet with you one-on-one. Small groups, come to your backyard. We can go to Eaton Street. A lot of our images are from there as we walk the different corridors and looked at that. We can meet you at the park. We can go through that, but anything you'd like to do, just request that. Again, our slide here, just to show and in kind of on the next slide here, it shows a little bit about that process. So this is what we've been going through. Again, we talked about the 2040 comprehensive plan update that was back in February. We have done tours. We have hosted things going looking at the existing. Here we are at the neighborhood meeting. Again, we are talking about a comp plan change and an SEP. But after that, that ends up at Planning Commission and City Council. Post that, then we have to come back for another process called the official development plan, which is the official architectural renderings, all the details, right? That comes back and goes through a process where we would engage with the neighborhoods as well. So we have multiple steps still in front of us, but we just wanted to show you kind of what's ahead. Community outreach needs to be concurrent with all of those activities, right? So again, if you want meetings, presentations, learn anything about that, we're happy to go through. Next slide. I think that does it. We want to say thank you very much. Again, we have a number of neighbors here. And as Nathan said, we're actually here to listen and hear from you. So we did great 29 minutes to work through it. So we're happy to take any questions that you have or comments, and we can provide some answers or frankly, just listen to the feedback on how to move forward. So if anybody has any questions, I know we have some folks online as well. So if we get questions on there, we'll have those read to us. Good question, anybody?
Oh, I do.
Sure, go right ahead.
At the concept review meeting, the mayor was discouraging the height of the buildings and, also, view shed corridor.
Yes, sir.
And then in this presentation, you talked about the one corridor to Long's Peak, which is an existing corridor that exists, and it's really nothing to do with your development. So are you considering those comments and gonna incorporate them into the next iteration?
Sure. So I'll answer the first part and then we'll transition to the view corridor. The first part was, and I think it's a very fair point. Now in Westminster, and if staff wants to address it, there's a process now where you actually do concept review. So you go to city council, you present kind of the general concept of it, and you get feedback from them. So the gentleman was mentioning, the mayor said, hey, I want to understand the height. I think, and there was some detail around that. What we're looking at are how to provide those view corridors, how to set back that height and look at that. So we are looking at those opportunities. I think one of our challenges is, if you show this slide that shows the cross section of this, is that even a one-story building across this site, you know your neighborhood here, this is the park structure, this is the facility here in the park. It shows this really substantial change here. So a one-story building is actually would block most of the views across the west, right? So what we're trying to do is open up corridors because of that. Look at that. So Kaylee, maybe how we're addressing that then because of that situation.
Mind going back, Nathan, to the bubble plan? Thank you. So in addition to providing this one, we're looking at,
That one exists, though.
yes.
So, okay,
In
Please go
addition
ahead.
to that, we are looking at this eastern edge and trying to figure out what the parameters need to be to limit our building height in that area to 4 stories. This site actually allows up to 5 stories because it is in proximity to 36. So trying to make sure that we are being mindful of that. We're also, our buildings won't all be that height. We're looking to make sure that we're, with our architecture team, that we're staggering in areas to preserve what we can this way here through the center of our site.
So if you have additional feedback, I think you're suggesting, and I'm not arguing with that at all, that existing corridor is there because of the trail that's
Right,
there
that's
today, right?
exactly right.
We will have that entrance, but we want to protect that and add to that. So I understand that is there today. as
Well,
part of that. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
oh, no, I don't mean to
No,
interrupt,
no,
but you said you're adding that, and that exists.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in what could be added.
Yeah.
Because you get no, in my mind, you get no credit for what exists. So
Sure.
help us out.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is that loop trail, the opportunities, really connecting those trails. Like, we think that's a big part of that, is providing that again, and I'm not at all taking, just the challenge of this site is the topography of this site. It is higher than the neighborhood, right? So again, a one-story building. So what we have to do, sir, which I think you make, is try to find view corridors across that site. Are you looking more at a true kind of westerly view, or what is the southwest view? What is the view that you're trying to?
Oh, I am selfish. I'm looking at a total westerly view because
Okay.
your cross section that you showed
Yes, sir.
was one house south of mine.
Okay.
So I'm selfish. This is
It's okay.
NIMBY, you know what I mean?
We're all, it's okay. We all live. It's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at this map where you got the cross section going on
Yes,
there,
yeah.
whatever, I'm the one house to the north.
Okay,
So that's what I care about.
great. Okay.
That's,
Yeah.
and
Just add to that existing view corridor that's to the north, we're expanding that a little bit too. Nathan, if you don't mind going back to the actual site, the proposed here, you can kind of see how we're really trying to really limit the amount that we're intruding on that with just the corners of that building. And then here you can kind of see where we're trying to preserve that center opportunity for that.
okay, and then another question.
Please,
if
go
I
ahead.
can.
Yeah,
I don't wanna monopolize this, but again, at the concept review meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
You had talked about, oh, you're maintaining the distance between Waverly Acres and your development. But your schematic at that time was counting the open space that you can't develop. So how much are you gonna go in?
Yeah.
Buffer from the open space, cause I'm out there and this guy can vouch for me. I walk my dog out there every day.
Sure.
I mean, so can you scoot that in a little?
Yeah, so we have what we will label, and I think sorry, Nathan, we're gonna keep going back and forth with that cross cut. Is that the best one, the cross section?
Yeah.
To show the setback. So what we would label that. So Kayla, if you wanna walk through our setback where we can't have buildings, because that's not open space, right? That's our property line, and then where our buildings.
So we've got a 50-foot minimum setback on that edge. Currently, right now, as preliminary design stands today, we're a little over 100 feet on that setback on that from our property line inward.
Requirement of 50, we're hoping a lot of those buildings is more like 100 the way that sets out. This here is the property line that shows that. So we just want to be sure, yes, I guess we're showing the existing open space. We're not trying to take credit for that. That is there. And then we're again having that additional setback to expand that separation.
So this is roughly 392 feet. So what would be your property line-ish to this proposal property line? And in addition to that 392, we're looking at roughly around 100 feet.
Yes, John.
Who's currently holding the property deed to this? Is that owned by Erickson or is it still owned by the Hans?
We are the contract purchaser.
I'm asking who holds the title currently?
Yeah, it is the home.
So you don't own it. This is all perspective. My next question would be, I heard the same rigmarole from the Erickson group years ago about a development at 128th and Huron, which is now the Tanglewood development. You wasted staff's time, taxpayers' money with all of that rigmarole. Is this the same thing? Or is this just somebody's wild dream? Or is that actually going to come to fruition? Because it didn't happen before.
Yeah, and I don't know the specifics as to why it didn't come to fruition in the past, but Erickson has long been interested in bringing a second community to the Denver area, specifically
Right.
Northwest Denver.
And again, that happened years ago around their side of town.
Yeah.
I'm asking to make sure that you're not wasting taxpayer dollars on some bubble pipe dream.
We completely get it. We understand. That's why we're being very transparent about the process. I'll just also say, because I want to be sure, the property owner, the Hahn family, as you mentioned them, any purchaser that would go through the process would be under contract, would go through the entitlement process and then close. So we are following the same process that anybody else would go through to go through that. We couldn't want to be more serious. This is a great application. We think this is an ideal site. They have looked in recent years all over this area and have focused on this site. So John, we think this is a terrific place to be. It's an amazing mix of amenities, great neighborhoods, and very central, the promenade, all the things. So we think this is the right site. We'd love to have neighbors support that vision and help make that true. Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Back a few slides to the percentage of that you would be handling versus our taxpayer first responders.
Yeah.
What exactly is 13%? Give me a number, not a percentage. I need a real number.
So the question's on the calls there, Marianne. So just thinking about that, I think that probably depends on the number of units that we have.
Yeah, that's our
Like,
nationwide.
Well, this is not nationwide. I'm asking for this.
It's about a call and a half a day. And I'm-
On top of what they're, and how does our first responders, our fire department and our fire chief, where are they?
We're working with the fire department. They've been, they're part of the public process and they've reviewed our plan.
Referral agency, yeah.
Yeah,
I think be more transparent, give real numbers instead of percentage, because 80% incentive what? 80% incentive, 100%, 100 people?
So you're saying here, our 87% of our use may be different, right? So try to give real numbers on that. That's fine. What we may do, if it makes sense, because we're doing it as number of units, right? Or space on there. John, we may do it that way. So we'll look for a way. What does that translate to number of calls, right? So that's perfectly fine. Of course, I will be sure and point out that any use on this site would occupy police, fire, and all of those calls. So I think it's the discussion about, is this more than that? Well, we're trying to show because of the built-in facilities, we limit that, but we understand your point. We'll work on it. Great. Any questions over here? Are there questions online at all? I don't know if there are and people can hear it.
Yeah, we're not doing live.
Okay, okay, yeah.
But I did have one gentleman.
Sure.
Write in. He wasn't able to attend tonight. He just wanted the comments addressed by probably a little bit of both of us.
Sure.
Joe McHenry, asked, it appears that all of the Erickson Senior Living communities are nonprofits. What would the difference in taxes collected by our city, Jefferson County, and Colorado of proposed nonprofit business versus a for-profit business of the same size as proposed for the senior project?
We are proposing.
Yeah. Sure. We're gonna have Steve come forward and address that just to hear, so how we are treated, I guess, from a tax.
Speaker, yeah, Steve Montgomery of the Erickson Senior Living. Specifically, not all of the Erickson communities are not-for-profit, and we'll be evaluating, if this is a successful project, we would be evaluating whether or not to seek not-for-profit status here. Saying that not-for-profit status does not apply to the numbers you saw on the screen regarding property taxes, sales taxes at the local and state level. Those are requirements regardless of your not-for-profit status.
Great. So those taxes are collected for the local, state, county, et cetera. Okay, great. So we'll have a follow-up on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just another comment based on Windcrest, as a model for the Erickson Senior Living structure, the calculated minimum monthly expenses for a resident at Erickson, for the national average of 2.5 years in assisted living is about $5,500 a month. This is 19% higher than the assisted living center, Sunrise of Westminster, that's a mile away. The comment is, this may be business as usual, but it appears to be that they're gouging the residents and claiming a nonprofit status at the same time. Comment here, yes.
I think we'll go, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little hard to understand the question, but they may be referring to, and they reference Windcrest, so, the pricing on Windcrest. They talk specifically about assisted living, which is a higher level of care. So that will help residents with all the tasks associated with like their daily living. So, it's much more of a healthcare. Right, it's providing much more healthcare than the vast majority of our residents will be living in independent living. So that could be why it would be associated. I can't speak to other operators in the area. But again, if they want to look at pricing at Windcrest, they can go onto the website. That's sort of different than what we're proposing here.
So why don't you tell us the prices, put some real numbers to this?
Yeah, at this point, we're so very, very early in the process, as we mentioned.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I believe at the concept review meeting, you talked about it being about $250,000 buy-in and then
That
beyond
would be
that.
associated with the Windcrest and maybe some.
I'm talking about this.
I was at the meeting. I know what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
So
You were too, Marcus. You know what he's talking about.
absolutely, I'm happy to address, yeah. So I think that what we've talked about is, again, their model, the Erickson model, does have a buy-in and then has a monthly. As Mary Ann just referenced, there are different levels within the community. It's a continuum of care. I will make a very fair statement. In all levels of housing, whether it be multifamily or for sale or senior, there are different price points, right? And so what we're trying to do is price that. It will be reflected by the surrounding AMI, the level of income here, and reflect that, and also based on the housing prices that are in here. So they really try to fit into the community that they're in, so that's going to reflect that. So I think what Miriam is referencing is that the information that was cited was about the highest level of care and memory care and some of that. That's of course going to be a higher level, and we don't know if that's an apples to apples to the Sunrise.
So one more. If this project is granted permission to construct, the apartment buildings will likely obliterate the mountain views of many properties to the east. A mountain view or even a partial mountain view significantly increases value of property. Will the county be adjusting the property values accordingly for the lost value of every property that is affected?
So we'll go through that. I mean, here's what I'll say again, and I mean this completely respectfully. We want and will continue to work with the neighborhood. The challenge of this site is it's open today, right? We're all going to acknowledge we see across the site today. But there's a comp plan designation. The site will be developed. It will follow those. And even a one-story building impairs that view. So our opportunity, whether it be 1 or 4 stories, is to try to work with the community to find those view corridors and preserve those. Again, we think this is a complete community. We'd encourage you to go see the Windcrest facility. I would tell you, I think that has been incredibly additive to the property value around it. If you look at the trail enhancements, all of the land use contour, all of the things that are happening, go to that site and see the value that has gone there. So we can't prove that up, Nathan, but I think we'll look at that and really understand it. Again, we certainly do not see a diminution of value for the surrounding lands.
And then added on, please consider restricting the height of the proposed plan to no greater than 30 feet. They think the west end is an eyesore. They don't want to add any more structures that would further obstruct the view of the front range. We can address that. And then what kind of impact will the large buildings have on eagles that hunt the land for proposed development? I'll just say that, we'll follow all state and federal regs as far as any sort of endangered species on the site. It's not an open space site, it's a privately owned parcel. And then finally, while increased housing is needed in the Denver metro, the biggest need for housing is not high income, but rather low to middle income. Erickson will be creating housing replacement options that will primarily be met by high income or formerly high income households, which will not have a significant impact in improving the housing shortage of the Denver area.
Okay, so we'll address that again. I think we believe that the most needed type of housing is senior housing, right? And this is what that does. It also facilitates all the existing housing stock that seniors are living into. And just so everybody knows, so you don't have to trust us, go look at the state demographer presentation on growth in Colorado. It is fascinating, it is eye-opening, and it's actually startling about senior housing. So read the state demographer, it's just released. It is about housing all across Colorado, and it is focused on senior housing. So they're not our numbers, they're senior numbers that are produced by the state demographer who studies that. So that information, if we can, we'll actually provide a link to everybody. If you signed up, we can provide that information. I think I missed a question from you earlier. Did you have a follow-up?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, but I have another one.
Yeah, go right ahead. You got it. I prompted you.
Assuming this goes through,
Yes, sir.
which, what are you gonna do with all the prairie dogs around?
So we go through the same process. Kaylee can talk to this. We work with the city. We go through that. Kaylee, I'm sorry, I don't actually know that. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, but there are processes that you have to work with to the city.
Yeah, we're currently talking with the city on what exactly that process entails to safely remove those from the site.
So you don't know.
What was that?
You're not sure what's gonna happen, you don't know.
Requirements for.
Unless the city, because
We
they.
actually don't. So private property, there's no requirements to relocate.
Yeah.
I don't care about relocating them, but you build them and then they're gonna move.
Oh, you're
And they're
right.
gonna move into my backyard,
Understand.
Sure, or into the open space. That's adjacent.
right, which is like my backyard, so
Right.
that's what I'm
You don't want
concerned
us to do
about.
that. I understand. Okay.
You,
Very
you,
good.
you can't just develop and then kill the prairie dogs on your land and then they just move away. Cause it's a super colony. So there's gotta be a plan.
Okay, coordination.
Okay.
Good point. Other questions? Yeah, please. No problem.
I have like 3 of them.
Well, the wildlife was a big concern because the pair of nesting eagles that are just south of us here, which the city claims they're being responsible, they got, we're building a water treatment plant down there. We can't figure that out. The citizens can. But the nesting eagles, they eat the prairie dogs. That's part of the ecosystem. So it all goes hand in hand. How are you going to address that? More importantly, I don't know, you probably haven't got your developer or your contractors in line yet. But I think you need to assure the people on the east side of this property at Waverly Acres that you will be good neighbors. Because I'm currently in a situation that Marcus is also involved in, where we've got the worst terrible construction neighbors that anyone in the world could ask for. Norris Design is involved in it too. We're talking about the Uplands property. Sure, it's a disaster over there, and I don't want these people over here at Waverly Acres to have to live through that same disaster day in and day out. Noise, dust, stormwater violations, just to name a few.
Yeah.
You need to assure these people that that won't fall upon them.
So I'm happy to go through. I'll have Kaylee address the first again. The process on all wildlife, all species you go through, the referral agencies work with them, identify their studies done, are there nesting, what's the population?
There are, it's proven.
We'll let the study go through that. I'm not questioning that. I'm saying let's let the experts do that and we'll go through it. And then the requirements of working with that is how we'll implement that. So we share the same thing that's worked through. I want to say, just because of your question on construction activity, you know, one of the great probably benefits of this site is that natural separation of open space and also then the 50-foot setbacks. Construction is hard. We all know that. It's a long ways away. We have multiple processes to move through before there's construction. John, of course, there's an impact. I'm sorry, I wish there wasn't, but this is not a shared road. This is, you know, approximately 400 feet away. Let's hope that really helps. But of course, during that process, there'll be screening walls, some of those things that go into place because of that construction. So that's many years, but your point is completely well noted. So that's something that we will go through. A very different situation. Any questions here?
It's construction and it's a neighborhood. It's not a situation, Marcus.
No. I agree with you. Construction is always a challenge. We agree. At Erickson, because of these facilities, you go through a lot on that.
As we build out the community, you know, if we go through the public process, we also will have Erickson residents living on the, you know, in proximity to it as well. So we're very mindful of any disruptions that would be unusual or
I'm
outside.
talking before in Erickson people get there.
Yes, but we do.
There's not a house one on an Uplands property, and day in, day out, it's a problem over there.
Right.
Day in, day out. They don't care about the neighbors. They don't care about the kids at the schools. They don't care about the day.
John, we're going to try to keep it focused here on this.
I'm just alerting these
Yeah.
people in the neighborhood.
So I'm happy to address it. This is standalone infrastructure that is not shared or connected. This won't make a connection to Waverly. Some of those limitations are much better. So I understand your point about 104th and about Westminster Boulevard and looking to those. So you make a very fair point. Nobody's taking umbrage. It's a completely different situation. This is an isolated parcel that shares open space, city property, open space, and 104th. That's how we'll try to address that situation.
Right. What exceptions are you gonna be asking for from the city?
Exceptions, I think that's another question that talks about other sites. So Kaylee, what we would do is first, we have to provide the comp plan designation, folks, right? So we're asking for that. Then we have a PDP, a preliminary development plan. That's a concurrent application that we're doing. After that, we come back and we do an official development plan. And really what you have to do is comply with that underlying PDP, right? With the conditions you put in place there. I don't know that we would have any exceptions. I don't know that. We certainly don't know what those would be today.
Yeah, at this point, we're working towards writing our rules and regulations in the PDP and working to make sure that we're hearing you guys out to write those into our guiding document that will help us further design the ODP itself. I'm not sure what those exceptions would be. We're hoping for not a ton of those, or any at this point in time.
This is the PDP, the process we're in now, goes to planning commission, city council. In the future, if there were ever exceptions, you would ask for them in the ODP process. So during that process, so just so everybody can see on the map how that would work.
There's not code in the city of Westminster for a CCRC. So we're going off of what would be multifamily standards and using that as our base to kind of implement as we write the PDP.
Folks, we are happy to take any other questions, comments, anything. And again, I'd say to neighbors, if there's, if you would like us to come, meet with you, see the view, you know, any of those things to really talk about, your comments are very fair. I think we're trying to get to any of that and how to work best with all of you. So I know we'll continue to have more engagement. Again, I know this slide shows, you know, a continual outreach, right? Set up what you would like us to do and how we can fit into that. And we're happy to do so. We will send you all an email and follow up with you that has that. We'll also provide that link to the state demographer so you can look at that housing study. Any other questions, comments, closing thoughts? All right, you're all very nice. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll do this again. We look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out.
What? So I keep trying to not walk in. So I'm like, what do I do there? What do I do? Are you on the edge there of Waverly or where you?
Yeah, so I'm looking at
And I don't, I love, look at that map. Let's see. I mean, that is definitely the topography, but for twice. I don't know if it's a general, I will say any building there is really going to change everything. So